Right now, everything you call your savings can be frozen with a single keystroke. Not stolen by a thief in the night. Frozen, quietly, legally, by a bank, a court, or a government, while you sleep. The dollars in your account are just a number on a screen, and that number only holds its value because everyone agrees to pretend it does. History is full of mornings when that agreement vanished, and paper money became paper. But every single time, a small handful of things survived. Assets no cop, no court, and no central bank could touch. Most people own none of them. Before this is over, you will know all five, and why the richest players on earth are quietly buying them right now. Start with a hard truth, because it changes how you see everything that comes after. You do not actually own the money in your bank account. You own a promise. When you deposit cash, the bank does not lock your bills in a drawer with your name on it. It writes down that it owes you. Your balance is an IOU. And an IOU is only as good as the people who signed it and the system that enforces it. As long as that system runs smoothly, the promise feels like real money. But a promise can be paused. It can be devalued. It can be seized. And it can quietly rot while you are looking the other way. Think of it like a rigged casino. You walk up to the window and hand over your hard-earned cash, and they slide you a stack of chips. Those chips feel like money. You can bet with them, stack them, brag about them. But they are not money. They are the house's promise to pay you money later if the house is still standing and still willing. The house sets the rules. The house can change the rules. And on certain mornings in history, the house has simply closed the window and walked away. The people holding chips lost everything. The people who had quietly walked out with something real kept it. So the real question is not how much money you have. It is how much of what you have can be taken from you without anyone lifting a finger. Hold that question, because it is the whole game. And to see the answer clearly, you have to visit the mornings when the window closed. Go back to Germany, just over 100 years ago. The historian Adam Fergusson wrote the definitive account of it in a book called When Money Dies, and it reads less like history and more like a warning. After the First World War, Germany owed enormous debts, and it did the thing governments always do when they owe more than they can pay. It printed more marks, and more marks, and more marks. At first it felt almost harmless. Then prices started to run. Then they sprinted. By the autumn of 1923, a loaf of bread that once cost a couple of marks cost billions. People carried their wages home in wheelbarrows and laundry baskets, and the paper was worth less by the time they arrived than when they left work. Here is the part that matters for you. The people who got destroyed were not the reckless ones. They were the responsible ones. The savers. The people who had done everything right, who had money in the bank, bonds in the drawer, a pension they trusted. Their life savings evaporated into nothing because all of it was denominated in a promise that died. Fergusson describes the cruel flip that happened next. A cinema ticket could be bought with a lump of coal. A bottle of fuel bought a silk shirt. The things you could hold in your hands, coal, food, jewelry, a tool, suddenly bought more than a mountain of cash. The paper was worthless. The real stuff was king. Now, maybe you are thinking that was a strange moment, a defeated country a century ago, nothing to do with you. So let the story get worse and come much closer. Fast forward to Zimbabwe in 2008. This one is measured, not just remembered. An economist named Steve Hanke, along with his colleague Alex Kwok, did the painstaking work of calculating exactly how bad it got, because the government there had stopped even reporting the numbers, the way a losing gambler stops counting his chips. What they found is almost impossible to picture. At the peak, in November 2008, prices were doubling roughly every 24 hours. Money you earned on Monday had lost half its buying power by Tuesday. The government printed notes with more zeros than you could read, all the way up to a $100 trillion bill, and it still could not buy a loaf of bread. Once again, the people who trusted the paper were wiped out. The people who held something real walked through it. And this is not just a modern accident. It is one of the oldest tricks in the book, and it has a name that sounds harmless. Debasement. Go all the way back to ancient Rome. The Roman coin, the denarius, was once nearly pure silver. But every time the empire needed to pay for a war or a bribe or a bigger army, the emperors quietly melted the coins down and mixed in cheaper metal. Same coin, same face stamped on it, less and less silver inside. Over about 2 centuries, the silver content collapsed toward almost nothing. The emperor was skimming from every single coin in circulation without ever touching your pocket directly. It is the oldest protection racket on earth. You keep using the coins. They keep shaving the metal. You pay the tax, and you never even feel the hand in your pocket. So here is the pattern, across 3 different worlds, 3 different centuries. When those in charge owe more than they can pay, they do not usually announce a robbery. They do something quieter. They water down the promise. And the people who get hurt are always the ones who trusted the paper, the number, the chips. The people who come through are the ones who own things the system could not print, could not freeze, and could not seize with a keystroke. Which brings you, finally, to the 5. The things that survived every one of those mornings. Think of them as the family's go bag, the wealth you can keep when the doors get kicked in and the window closes. The first is gold, and physical is the whole point. Not a number in an app that says you own gold. The actual metal, in your hand, or in a safe you control. Gold has no chief executive who can lie to you, no board that can dilute you, no server that can be switched off. It has been treasured for 5,000 years across every civilization that ever existed, and here is the tell that should stop you cold. The people who run the money system do not trust their own paper. According to the World Gold Council's 2026 survey of central banks, gold has now passed United States government bonds to become the single largest reserve asset in the world for the first time since 1996. The very institutions that print the currency are quietly trading it for metal. When the house starts moving its own chips off the table, you should notice. The second is productive land and the real estate on it. Not a paper claim, but ground you control, ideally with no debt strangling it. In every collapse story, the person who owned the farm ate, and the person who owned the paper starved. Land cannot be printed into oversupply. It cannot be transferred out of your account by a technician. It grows food, it holds shelter, and it keeps working no matter what the currency does. But own it clean, because a piece of land with a giant loan attached is not fully yours. The lender is a silent partner who can still knock. The third is real, productive skill, and this is the one nobody can seize, ever, because it lives inside your own head. In Weimar Germany, the doctor still got paid. The electrician still got paid. The farmer who could actually grow things still ate. A skill that people will always need is a stream of income that no inflation can print into worthlessness and no court can freeze, because it does not sit in an account. It walks around with you. It is the one asset that regenerates every morning you wake up. The fourth is ownership of real businesses that make things people need no matter what. Not a lottery ticket stock you are gambling on, but a genuine share of a company that produces something people will still buy when times are hard. Food, energy, basic goods. When money loses value, a good business simply raises its prices along with everything else, and its real worth survives. You are not holding paper. You are holding a piece of something that keeps producing. And the fifth, the quiet one, is a private network of trust and useful relationships. This is the asset that sounds soft until you understand it is the hardest one of all. In every one of these collapses, the people who came through were rarely alone. They were connected. Who you can call, who owes you a favor, who will trade with you when the official system freezes. That is a form of wealth that cannot be printed, cannot be taxed, and cannot be frozen, because it does not live in a bank at all. It lives in loyalty. It is the oldest form of insurance the human race ever invented, and it is completely off the books. Now come back to today, because you do not have to wait for a wheelbarrow of cash to feel this. Look at what is happening in 2026 with clear eyes. Gold hit an all-time high above $5,500 an ounce in January, and ordinary people are lining up at warehouse stores to buy gold bars that sell out in hours. Central banks are dumping the dollar for metal at a record pace. The new head of the Federal Reserve is holding rates high. The national debt has climbed past $39 trillion, and every serious person is quietly asking the same question in the background. What happens to all that debt? There are only really 2 answers. Someone pays it honestly, or the promise gets watered down until it pays itself off in cheaper dollars. History tells you which one those in charge usually choose, and it is never the honest one. None of this means run and panic. Panic is what the house wants. Panic makes you sell the real things and clutch the chips. It means the opposite. It means quietly, calmly, over time, move some of what you have out of pure promises and into things that are actually yours. You do not need all 5 tomorrow. You need to stop believing that the number on your screen is the same thing as wealth. It is a promise. Promises can be broken. And the whole point of the family's go bag is that it holds what stays yours when every promise around it fails. So here's where this leaves you. If you would rather see the money system the way the people who run it actually see it, instead of the way they want you to see it, then you already know what to do. Subscribe and stay close, because in the next one you are going to learn the exact opposite move. Not what survives when the system burns, but the quiet, boring, perfectly legal trick the wealthy use to get richer while it is still standing, the one that turns the rigged casino into your casino. You will not want to miss how that one works, because it all comes back to the truth you started with. Everything you call your savings can be frozen with a single keystroke. Everything, except the handful of things they can never touch. Now you know what those things are. The only question left is how much of what you own is truly yours.